welcome back. Turn 1, Phase 2. The Union has first move during this phase. Quick addition, hopefully everybody can see this clearly. I kind of made a little track. This is the tracker for how many cards are in the hand for each side. Confederates are at 0, Union is at 1. And we'll go ahead and shuffle the cards now. And see what card the Union has for this hand. And a cut. A naval card, which for turn 1 really won't have an effect. Well, they could use the naval card to help cross a Confederate-controlled navigable river. Because in turn 1, for the first 3 turns, there's limits to what naval abilities the Union Army can do. And at the moment, so that for the Union right now, that card's not going to be very useful. So let's move to West Virginia, where the first obvious move is going to be. If we recall, the dice differential was 1, which means that each theater gets 1 activation point. So in the Eastern Theater, we're going to focus on McClellan. We'll activate McClellan and his 2 SPs, 1, 2, 3, 4, to attack into Charleston. Now that could leave, vulnerability back here, especially with these towns, but them capturing Charleston, he'll be in supply because at that point he'll have access to the river and stuff like that. So supply itself won't be an issue. There'd be possible issues if this Confederate SP decides to move. So we're doing combat. Even though there's a militia unit, it's 0 SP, it still has a value on the combat chart, so they'll basically be rolling on this table. McClellan will be rolling on the 2 column again with a +1 for their attack modifier. Battle for Charleston. Six to 5, which goes to 7 to 5. So if we look at our chart, McClellan's at a 7, so they do 1 casualty. The Confederates are at a 5. It's a star, no casualties. And the symbols basically mean, help differentiate a tiebreaker. So a star beats a diamond, and a diamond, beats nothing. So like further down the table, you could have 4 SPs versus 5 SPs, and one gets a 4 with a 1, and then one gets a 1 or a 5 with a 1 star. The 1 star would win even though they both just lose 1. So McClellan wins. The militia is removed. And McClellan moves into Charleston, West Virginia. The West Virginia militia unit gets placed into the Eastern Displaced Unit box. Now there's no change in control status right now because McClellan doesn't have enough movement points to be able to add 1. He's actually out of movement points completely. And automatic control won't happen until the end phase, which will happen at the end of turn 3. So basically all McClellan has to do is stay in there. End of phase 3. All McClellan has to do is stay in Charleston at the end of phase 3, and then it'll automatically become under Union control. Otherwise, during phase 3, McClellan could activate and then spend movement points to place a control marker, but that would likely be a waste of an activation. But when that does happen, Union will get 1 victory point for control of Charleston, and the Confederate BPs will be reduced by 1 as well for the loss of Charleston. All right, looking at the action point to be spent in the West for the Union, really not a lot we could do. What I'm going to do is spend the 1 action point in the West on the SP in Springfield and bring them down to reinforce St. Louis. St. Louis is at least 4 hexes away, and SP without a general can move only 3 hexes, but it is located on a railroad hex. And St. Louis also ends on a railroad hex. If we look there, you can see the railroad track goes down to Alton and then spins around to the east. And then the dot on either end of the Mississippi River there is a railroad connection. It just costs an extra movement point. But the movement bonus, so an SP moving by railroad, as long as they start and end, is 10, and that is well within the 10 hex or 10 movement points, so they'll be able to get all the way to St. Louis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh yeah, we're well in there. There we go for St. Louis. And that is the west movement point. All right, looking at the Trans-Mississippi, unfortunately we're in a bit of a pickle. We're going to spend the point on Lyon. He has 1 SP. He knows he's going to have a showdown with Price, who has 2 SPs down here. But even with his bonuses, it's not very good odds. With his attack bonus of 2, that's not very good odds. So he needs to basically get this picked up, and he doesn't have enough. There's enough action points to be able to do this. Because if he was a 2-star general, he'd be able to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then use the 5th movement point to move this guy from Rolla into his stack. And then he'd have enough movement down to Springfield. Unfortunately, he's going to have to, I believe, spend all 5 of his movement points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to consolidate in Rolla, and the next turn start moving this way. Unfortunately, he's gonna, the next turn, he's not gonna have enough movement points to get all the way to Springfield. Unless we get an action card next turn, that's a Trans-Mississippi card that I could use to force march. Which would unfortunately mean that he wouldn't have the action card available to use as a attack bonus. So that's a little bit of a stickler right there in the Trans-Mississippi. Friction is not working out at the moment in the Union's favor. All right, start of the turn 1 phase to the Confederate half of the turn. Mostly straightforward, at least for the Trans-Mississippi in the east. We'll take a look at the Trans-Mississippi first. All right, we're going to start with Price. We're going to activate Price and move him and his 2 SP into Springfield. That uses up 1 of his 4 movement points. He has 3 left, and so what he's going to do is he's going to take 2 movement points, spend 2 movement points to build entrenchments and entrench himself into Springfield. Next, we are going to move into the Western Theater, specifically Western Tennessee. And going along with the previously mentioned strategy of the Confederacy trying to move their way into the Trans-Mississippi to threaten the Union in Missouri, we are going to activate these two SP and move them by rail, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to Memphis. So that way they can be ready to be moved on a future turn. The Eastern Theater, a little more nebulous. Can't do any more rail movement, so I wouldn't be able to, say for example, grab this guy in Charleston and railroad him up because we've already spent the railroad points in Tennessee. Really, the only thing to do would be to activate this SP here. But really the question is where to move him. I mean, I could move into, start knocking down some of those Union control markers, but that's not really going to matter because at the end of the day, they don't have anything to be able to stop the Union from taking control. And, I mean, I suppose they can go move up. Actually, they could go move up and start threatening Grafton. That's, yeah, there we go. I forgot Grafton was a victory point. So in order for West Virginia to switch sides to the Union control, basically at the end of the turn, the Union would have to control all of the control points in West Virginia, which is Grafton, Charleston, and Wheeling right there. So I think that's what I'll do, is I'm going to threaten Grafton with this SP. And he's got a mountain faced across, so that's basically going to be 2 to move into this hex, and then 3 to move here. And that puts him in position to threaten Grafton next turn. Yeah, that's what we'll do. So taking a quick zoomed in shot just to get a closer view of what I was talking about. So Confederate unit moved up to here, and then Grafton is right here. So they'll be able to capture that next turn, especially if they're able to go first. That would really put a thorn in the Union's plan. Now, the Union could next turn, if they have a first move, they could quickly reinforce Grafton by moving the stuff over here by railroad to get over. But that kind of forces the Union to gotta fight over that West Virginia. All right, that is the end of turn 1, phase 2. Now we're going to roll the dice for turn 1, phase 3, which this will be the last phase. Phase 3 will be the last phase of turn 1. Union has initiative, and it's a difference of 4. So that is going to trigger a couple of things. So next turn, the Union will go first, or excuse me, the next phase, the Union will go first, and they'll have 4 action points to be able to do so. But one of those action points has to be spent making an attack into Virginia. So, yeah, that's where we're at. Quick overview, we got the Confederates have reinforced Springfield, transitioning over to Memphis to threaten the Trans-Mississippi Theater. Lions trying to consolidate to retake Missouri away from the Confederates. And then also we've got some back and forth fighting in West Virginia, which actually that's shaping up to be a little sporty. We'll see how that turns out. There might be a little bit more back and forth in that regard. So there's that. Thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate all the support and all the comments you guys are giving me, and we'll talk to you later in the future.